I've got a confession to make.
I need to get this off my chest. As a business owner, we all make mistakes.
I've got to confess.
Hey guys, it's Charlie from Confessions of a Business Owner here, and today I am doing another guest episode with someone that I think is just so important to bring to you, the one and only Leticia Campbell. Now, earlier this year, I was very, very fortunate to meet Leticia in the flesh in Bali, and we had a bit of a connection going in some similar values we share around family and life. So I'm very excited to bring Leticia onto the show. How are you doing, Leticia?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much, Charlie. How are you?
I'm really well. I'm, as I said, a little bit pumped for this episode. I think you've got an amazing story and confession to share with us.
Yes.
But before we get to that, I think it's really important to tie in what you actually do for business. So if you can you please tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yes, well, I'm a sales strategist, and I'm also the founder of the Camel Success Network. I founded an academy called the Sales Success Academy, where I teach women who are in MLMs, network marketing, and direct sale professionals how to make more sales online. I also work with other coaches and real estate experts and people like that on the branding part. But the major thing that I teach is sales strategy, sales process, sales implementation, and things like that, all online. And I'm also a head coach of the Sexy Brand Booking Formula as well, where I go real deep into teaching women how to generate sales online, along with creating automation systems, instructions, and things like that.
Brilliant. I love that you do that. And sales is certainly in an area where many people, I suppose, need a bit of an assistance. So it's very, very cool. And I'm going to ask you more questions about that later, because I'm dying to know. I don't answer this yet because we'll do it later, but it's like, what are the biggest mistakes you see with people when they come in with you, and like, how do you overcome that? So that's a little hook and teaser. We'll get back to that.
Yes, one. I love that.
But before we get into that from there, though, I think it's really important that we get to your confession, because when I read this, I was like, oh, I think this is me a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, Leticia Campbell, it's your time to confess on Confessions of a Business Owner.
Thank you again. Well, I live in the great state of New York here in the U.S. And I worked for a number of years in Manhattan, worked for all different types of sales companies and sales teams, area manager and things like that for well over 15 years. And one of the things that was a little bit of a struggle for me was managing my time working in sales, because I love sales. Like, I love getting in front of people and just getting them to really purchase something that they love and that they enjoy. And it's fun for me. I was never really like an office behind the desk type of person. I would always get bored at those jobs. So I love just getting out there and just working with people. So the thing that was a huge challenge for me is that everybody thought that my life was perfect on the outside with my children, with my marriage and things like that. But there was a lot of scary stuff going on behind the scenes, a lot of financial issues, most importantly, a lot of time spent away from my children. Literally last year around May, I went into a whole big old nervous breakdown because I was so mentally and physically overwhelmed with the demands of my marriage, demands of me being a mom, and also starting to kick off this business that I was trying to build online on the side. So it was a really, really big struggle for me. And like I said in my story, many of my audience knows that, me and my husband used to call each other roommates, because we, basically saw each other in passing, or if not even at all. So with that came a lot of challenges with our relationship, less time spent, really gaps in communications and stuff like that, along with me being a mom now of 4 children, because one of my major, dreams ever since I was a little girl was to have a large family. My brother has 10 kids. I have cousins that have 15 kids. Like, we come from a huge...
That is a huge family. That is some good breeding right there.
Yes, it is. Yeah. So I come from a huge family, and it's and I wanted to have those same values that my parents instilled in us growing up, and bring it over into my family. But it was hard, my oldest son, he's special needs, and it was hard for me to connect with him on an education level. There were days where I wouldn't even see my kids, because I would get home and they were already sleeping. And on top of, dropping my kids off in daycare and what have you. So I missed a lot of major milestones for my children. But what ended up transitioning for me is when I did get into my nervous breakdown. And I was like, I'm not going to wait 5 years to leave my job. I want to do it now. So literally 3 months after that, I was probably about 7 months pregnant with Valora. And I just went into my boss's office and gave my 2 weeks notice, and that was it. And I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm just going to go all in and go all out. And, that was one of my major perfections is, presenting to the world like I was managing it all. And I was really, blowing up inside, so yeah.
Well, this is a really common story. This is the thing that is, there's layers to this, so there's going to come questions. So first off is thank you for sharing so honestly, because there's people out there right now that will relate to this, myself included, is that for me, family is my number one value. Like it's something that I've designed and built a life around the ability to be a very present father and be able to spend time with my kids as well as provide for them financially. Like I wanted both. I didn't want to just have the money and I didn't want to just have the time. I feel like in today's world, both is a really good thing to go for. But it's incredibly challenging to go for that. And it's very easy to get consumed in career and have our relationships and family time and social life really, really suffer. And it's not a fun place to be at all. It's a really, really unfun place to come from. And the irony is we're working really hard to be able to spend more time with our children and, be at those milestone events. And we end up kind of creating the complete opposite because work becomes the thing. And it's something where I really admire people like yourself that get to a point and say, no more. Like there has to be a different way. So very, very cool things there. And I really appreciate you sharing it. So I want to dig a little bit into this because there's, as I said, definitely people out there that are working too much in businesses or jobs or careers that want to do that. And when what was the trigger point? What was the thing that just had you go, well, I can't live this way anymore. I have to move past it.
Well, what really triggered me, was the fact that, I was getting my health was getting into play. I was getting so physically sick because when you're working 14-hour days and then I used to bring my work home, it was so hard. And it wasn't until when I went home one day and my child, he woke up in the middle of the night and he was crying because he missed me. And he was like, Mommy, when are you going to be home with us? I've been talking to him forever about leaving my job. When are you going to be home with us? And you're missing this and you're missing that. And it really made me feel like, I got to do this for them. I got to really say, you know what? I want to never put my kids in daycare again. Another thing that was a huge milestone for me, and I know a lot of women relate to this, is that when you have to depend on other people, sometimes you get taken advantage of. And that's something that really happened to me. I go really deep into this because it's hard when, you have to depend on other people because they sort of decide, they're the deciding factor. Well, if I'm not here, then who's going to watch your kids or who's going to, be able to support you on that end. So when I really had the aha moment, I don't want nobody watching my kids but me. And I don't want to depend on anybody to watch my kids for me, having to pick them up, drop them off, and do all that stuff. So for me, it was sort of when I left my job, I fired a lot of people in my circles. I don't need you. I don't need you. I don't need you anymore. So that was sort of another thing that was an aha moment for me because it was really helped me to really solidify that I have to make the steps to order to show my kids that they can come to me for anything and they know that Mommy's always going to be there. I'm not going to be at work or, what have you. Even another thing that has changed, just recently, I've been now a full-time entrepreneur for almost a year, was that, even when I go to their school, it's a totally different, means of respect. They call me Miss Campbell. It's no longer, oh, that's Rory's mom. That's the Rory's mom. They know if something happens or if there's an event, I'm always there. I'm the self-proclaimed soccer mom, as they say.
Well, I'm hoping to be the soccer dad, so I admire that as well. So it's a really, really cool way, and I obviously love a lot about this story and how you've been able to transition the relationships in that example to being more involved with your children's lives because they're going to grow up. They're going to get big You don't get that time back.
Nope, not at all.
See, for me, what was really interesting is I'm at a stage in my life where I'd say probably about a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago now, is that my friends started having kids. Like people in my life started having children.
Wow.
And one of the moments I'll just never forget was a mother had a child, and I won't name names because she definitely won't be happy if I name her on the show. But she'd just had a kid and she'd finished having some time off with her child, and she had to put her child into daycare and go back to work.
Yep.
And I saw the look on her face of a broken mother that was being separated from a child. It was actually horrific. I'll never forget it. But I sat there and I was like, I will never have that. I'll never have that happen. That is so heartbreaking that is what is required in her life, where she's got to let someone else spend the time with her kid to go back to work to pay the bill. It's just not worth it.
That's right.
So what piece of advice would you give to anyone that's going through this situation now where they're not, and it doesn't have to be kids, but, is spending all their time in their business and not getting any time with their loved ones or their family or their friends or anything like that?
Well, for one, you got to get more support. I mean, I remember a few months back, I reached out to you for some assistance regarding, more, assistance with VAs and things like that. One of the things you guys got to understand is that you can't do everything. Okay? And that's hard for me because, when somebody told me one day that you're not Leticia, you're not Superwoman. And, for a long time, I thought I can come home, work 15 hours, cook, clean, just be there, and you can't do everything. I think that was one of the first signs that I was getting into my nervous breakdown, because I kept putting too much overwhelm on myself, and I was being truly unfair. You need to know how to delegate and delegate to the right people. You need to get so much more support, because during your entrepreneurial journey as a woman, because I am a woman, I can only speak in that perspective, you get a lot of people who don't get what you're doing, or don't understand why you want to have a business or build a business. Because I come from a very religious background as well. So, we're always told you got to be a wife and a mom and clean the house and all that other stuff. And when you want to step outside the mold, you get a lot of rejection, not just from your community, but from your friends and coworkers and things like that. So you got to be around very supportive people. And that's one of the reasons why, even, when we got the opportunity to meet in Bali, I was like, I'm in the right place. People here get me, and they didn't even know who I was. So yeah, I think those are two of the major things that's super important as you're going through this process.
Two really good points there, and I'll agree to that massively. When we went to that event in Bali that I was speaking at, it felt like we were home. It felt like there was a group of people in that room, which it was like we're all on the same kind of I'll call it same wave, is like we were all sharing that. And it's very, very common as well that even in my own journey, I look back, and when I first started this, I'm confident most people thought I was crazy when I started a business and didn't have a job and was doing things where we challenged the norm. It's only natural that we start getting those questions. So how did you deal? Because this can be a really hard thing as well, because people in your life that you care about and loved ones will say things just to protect you, but it can be very, very confronting. So how did you handle those type of things?
Oh my God. For me, it was very different, because the one person that I thought would support me, was sort of like, what the hell are you doing? And that was my partner. When I first started in my business, when I really was getting real serious, I've been in business for a while, but it was until a little bit over a year and a half ago that I was like, I want to do this, and I want to go all in. I want to really do this. One of the things you got to do, again, you got to get around more people that support you versus people that don't support you. And another thing, I'm not going to curse, but you can't give a damn what, I'm saying, those people out there, the naysayers, even if the thing is, this is challenging for some women, because we get the most non-support for the people who are closest to us, like our husbands, like our boyfriends, like our partners, our mom and dad. Those are the ones they really come heavy on us sometimes. And so you can't just say, well, I want to kick you out of my life, because they're part of your life. They're in tune with you. So I kept conversations that pertain to my business. I refrained that from, my partner, because I didn't want to hear the letdown, right? Or I didn't want to hear the oohs and the ahs or the objections and stuff like that. So I started really purging myself into people around me. And I even flown all the way on the other side of the world to get in front of people that got me, And I think those are the major things. And just know that you're building a legacy. And that's the beautiful part of all of this. I had an aunt that passed away last year. When we were at her funeral, they was talking about all the degrees she has and all the jobs she worked at and how high she was at in her position. I was like, I don't want to be known for that. Yeah, I have degrees. Yeah, I have certifications. Yeah, I worked at the top executive level of the job that I worked at, but I don't want that on my obituary. I want people to say that I helped thousands and millions of women to teach and to learn their value and learn their purpose and learn their passions. And, I gave back to the world. I really contributed versus, who I served while I was on here, a job, things like that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And isn't that just such a good filter for life? Like if you're, if you envisioning it, obviously we don't like these dark thoughts, but it's like if you're envisioning, what people would say at your funeral, and it's like, he was a fantastic middle manager. He achieved C-level board status or C-level executive status. It's like, that's not the things I want from there. So that's such a great filter. And I'd honestly encourage more people to be thinking about that stuff because it completely shifts your view in how you show up in the world. So that's fantastic. So I want to shift the conversation a little bit now because I think you've shared a really big part of the transition and some fantastic mindset that's got you through on how you push through. But I want to dig a little bit into the sales strategist stuff because I know you're very talented in this area. And I'll loop back to that question. In the world of sales, what do you see as the biggest mistake people make with sales?
Yes, well, we're actually doing a masterclass on Thursday. We're going to get more deeper into this. But one of the biggest mistakes I see women do that makes them at an unfair advantage is that they don't really want to dive into branding who they are. Really in this market, you have to sell an experience. You have to sell a feeling. Like you look at top companies like Apple and all those big retailers out there that are selling products and services. They're really getting people to buy into the experience, buy into what is that lasting impression that they want people to have, once they leave their presence or while they're buying or their products or service. So that's one of the major things that I've seen more than any other, mistake that people make, particularly online, is that they're not selling enough experiences. They're not really getting people to become magnetically attracted to them. And if you don't have that on the front end, then, people are just going to go through your content, through your newsfeed and just pass on and go to somebody else that does give them an experience, whether the experience is them being more conscious about their health, being more conscious about their look, wanting to travel the world and be free and have freedom, whatever it is, you got to, really selling experiences are the biggest thing right now that people are buying into.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of power in what you just said then. And the great example is, of course, Apple. But even when you look at, I like going to an Apple store, like they've created something where I like being sold to. And obviously you have to look at different businesses have different selling methods, but they've just done a good job. On the other side of things, we look at Nike, where it's like, I enjoy the Nike experience. I really, so those brands are certainly selling out. And then on the reverse of that, it's like we look at companies. I'm not bagging this company at all. I think they make great products, but it's like HP, Hewlett-Packard. It's like, I'm not seeing the same experience of selling computers that Apple provide at all. So the brand is a big part of it. So that's a really interesting observation.
Yeah, it's definitely huge. Yep.
Okay. So on the reverse of that, that's an area where we look at that. How does someone start improving in that area?
Well, the first thing is you got to figure out is what I always tell my clients this when we first get on a strategy session is what impression do you want to give to your audience? How do you want people to feel when they watch you go live or when they're looking at your posts or when you're not even in the room? Like, what is that feeling that you want to have? Do you want women to feel empowered? Do you want to take women, like I was just on a call before I came on here, one of my clients, she was like, I want to help women learn more about money and how to manage money. And that's powerful because most of the time as women, we grew up knowing how to spend money or know where to get it, from our partners and from the job. We don't know how to manage it. So I think like when you know your niche, right? Or that one problem that you want to solve for your audience, that is the number one place where you get started because it's going to be the foundation of your entire brand. When you know what problem that you're solving, when you know how you want your audience to feel, and I mean, we go really in deep to it, but just starting there and start to really analyze what value you want to give to the world, that's an awesome place to start. Because anything else, once they get attracted to that, whatever you're selling on the back end, they're going to buy. You know, even if you're going from one company to the next, they're always going to follow along with you because it's the feeling. It's the, again, going back to the experience. Those are things that are just hugely important. And also to being transparent and sharing your story. You know, that's something that's, you know, definitely a place where you should get started, because in this world, like, you know, you go on social media, you see people with the cars and the houses and stuff like that. But what I'm noticing, when people get really deep and look at you in the face and really, you know, go into more of transparency, like, well, I've been through a divorce and now I had to build myself up and gain financial freedom, or I was huge. I had one client that was like 300 pounds and now she's like rocking it like in a size 10. So when people see that you went through that journey and you're transparent and you lay all out there, they're like, wow, you know, her journey and her experience was amazing. Let me, you know, find out more about her. It's that curiosity that you got to ignite in people.
Absolutely. And I think you've now two really strong points there, is that, you know, authenticity is the new black, in my opinion. Yes. It really is. It's like it almost feels if someone's on camera or you're watching a video and they're perceiving that all their life is perfect and everything always has, it's like the bullshit detector just goes off within us now.
It sure does.
I don't believe it. So authenticity is a huge one. But the other one is, and this is something I'm really getting the trend around at the moment, is I love that idea of, you know, again, looking at it through a filter of what feeling am I created or trying to create. Because in the example of female money management, as you mentioned from there, I look at that and go, okay, well, really, the feeling she's probably trying to create is empowered and confident. So it's like leaning in that area is really going to help her audience feel that way. And that's what they're wanting to achieve in that area.
Absolutely.
But so cool, and such a different way to kind of look at things. And I really, really like that lens. Okay. Ooh. So when you've kind of looked at that, we've kind of covered what are the biggest mistakes you see, and then we've covered, you know, where's the starting point from there. But how does someone actually get better at sales? Is this something where they need to do training and courses, or is this where experience counts for a lot?
Well, a little bit of both. For one, you definitely got to get training and courses, because that would teach you the strategy. And for everybody, they have their own unique strategy. Like my mentor says, we all have our own one way to the money, right, strategy. So that's something that's important. Another thing is practice. I see a lot of women, they'll try at it, and then when it doesn't work out, or when they get nervous and they get their limited beliefs coming into the play, they stop. So really, you know, you got to get into that self-development, get into some type of mentorship program where you're getting the strategy, you're getting the support, and then practice makes perfect. I used to be so nervous, you know, my first time going out there, you know, having to deal with top execs, you know, and speaking in front of them. I was so nervous. And then after a while, I was like a pro at it. I saw millions of dollars, you know, going from one account to the next. And I was like, okay, I got this, you know, and that's something that sort of helps you sharpen your eye. And when you get the self-development plus the practice, makes perfect as well.
It's an interesting one, particularly in sales. There's categories in our life that I feel like people think they're good at naturally. Like, I'll give you a couple. It's like, we think we're good at being a friend. We think we're good at being a wife or a husband. We think we're good at communication. And it's like, really, it's like they're all actually skill sets. They're things we need to learn. But I feel like sales sneaks in a little bit here, where a lot of people think they can sell and kind of go past the idea of getting some training. And I think it costs them dearly. Yeah. And it's a huge one to work on.
Yeah, it's a misconception of sales, because everybody's perspective of sales is different. And that's something I had to realize in the past year. Like, some people's perspective may be like, well, I'm going to sell this phone. It's $200. Here you go. Buy the phone. That's not sales. Okay. and I work with a lot of MLMers and network marketing professionals, and they're being taught that that's sales. And it's not. Sales is about relationships. You know, it's about building that relationship and getting people to just, I remember when I was a little girl, and there used to be like that vacuum cleaner guy that would come around your house with a vacuum, and he wouldn't tell you the price of the vacuum or nothing. He'll show you how to work it. He actually show you the dirt that's like he picked up from the vacuum that you have in your bed or your carpet or something like that. And you're like, oh my God, I have all that crap on my carpet. Okay, I'll buy it. You know, it's just about building that relationship and, again, the experience. So again, I always found that everybody's perception of sales is different. It's way different. Some people do it the wrong way. And, you know, there's a lot of people that, you know, needs to learn how to do it the right way.
Absolutely. Now, so there's the people that, this is an opinion piece as well. This is what I think.
Yeah.
But there's people that think they can sell and they can't. And then the other side of that is the people that are scared of being a beginner again. They really don't like sucking at something, and putting in those hours of practice into something is a big holdback as well. Is that something you see commonly? Do you see people that are scared to be crap at it again or start over as a beginner?
Yeah, I mean, especially when they're switching out companies and they don't really know who their target audience is or who they need to be speaking to. But I believe that anybody who is not really a good salesperson can transition themselves to building better relationships and coming better at sales. But it's all about applying yourself as well. And it takes work. It's not easy. You see a lot of stuff on the internet saying, hey, you can make $500 a week, join my company. And then when they realize that it's work involved, 98% of them stop. It's always like 2% that be like, okay, I know it takes work in the implementation and stuff like that. So I know there always can be a transition if you apply yourself to it.
Yeah, it does require that effort. Now, Leticia, where's the best place for someone to come and learn a little bit more about you and see what you're doing in the sales space?
Yes. Well, you guys can definitely join me at bit.ly/Domination Masterclass. I do like a 3-part series along with myself, my girl Abby McKenna, and Starwin, and we definitely teach you guys more of not just sales. We also teach automation, mindset, and things like that. But that's a good place because we're like power moms, we're like unstoppable girls. So we just would love to have you guys join us and be a part of this masterclass experience.
Yeah, guys, and I would really encourage, if you are resonating with this message and some of the things Leticia has to say here, I'd really encourage you to check out that link. We will include a link in the description. I did receive that before the show. Lucky we got it in there. So that is the wrap up for this episode. I want to say thank you so much, Leticia, for coming on Confessions of a Business Owner and sharing the real story and what's important in this world.
Yes. Thank you, Charlie.
No worries. That's it for this episode, guys. Thanks for tuning in.